Hey there, Cube Nation. We are at Stoney Ridge Farm with Josh today, who's received his Cube freeze dryer, and we're excited to visit with him as he's going to get going here.
Nice.
Josh?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Thanks you guys for coming all the way out from Salt Lake, Utah, all the way to little town of Stoneville, North Carolina. I think our population's like 1,600 here. So thanks. Welcome to the shop.
Yeah, this is a great place. It's been fun to visit with you.
Yeah.
Get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
So Josh, tell me your first impressions on it.
So first impressions, guys, when you're working with a piece of machinery like this, you need reliability. That's the main thing. You need reliability and consistency with a freeze dryer. And there are a lot of freeze dryers out there that aren't quite consistent and aren't quite as reliable. So what I've learned in using this is slide your food in, you gotta make sure you prep it correctly. And I think that's something that's important for everybody who gets a freeze dryer. You can't just stuff anything in there. As I tried figs the other day, and my figs turned out to be little crispy balls with hollow centers. So now I make a fig puree and put in there. So interesting, the Wi-Fi capability on this that'll let you know when and what step your food is in the freeze drying process, which is something that's really unique in case you're traveling out of town or something like that. You can fire this thing up and walk away and not worry about it. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay, so loving it. Super easy to use. Open the door, it's magnetic, so there's no hard latch to pull down tight. You can tell whether it's got its seal right here by this rubber seal, and it looks like you guys have done something pretty innovative with the door. So it shuts to this point, and whenever I get done with the freeze dryer, I always want to leave the door open so that it can breathe. So it automatically stays open. Now when I get ready to use it, it's simply that easy. Instead of a latch, and you can see when your rubber seal has actually made contact all the way around right here on the front of the freeze dryer. So awesome, easy. It's just start, stop. I mean, that's all you got to do. We're right here. If I hit the start button, it just says, is your food frozen or unfrozen, or is it candy? So super easy to just hit a button and forget it.
We love being able to just make it as easy as possible for customers.
Yeah.
The more complicated it becomes, the less people use it, unfortunately. And we want it to be running all the time.
Right.
Otherwise, why have it?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so there's a few things that you'll notice different about us and the Cube than any other people on the market. Number one being the vacuum pump. There's a big discussion all over the internet, but we have put the vacuum pump inside the chamber and it's oil free.
okay.
So you never have to make an oil change. It just runs and runs and runs.
So what does oil-free mean to the consumer, to these guys that are watching this? What does that mean? So you have an oiled vacuum pump. Is that a lesser grade of vacuum pump? In other words, the tolerances in that vacuum pump aren't quite as good, so you have to service it periodically? Or is a vacuum pump that's not serviceable like you guys use, is that a better quality item?
An oil pump, you're pulling the air through, and the oil is absorbing some of the moistures and things like that.
Gotcha.
And it's using that to run. The oil-free pump, in this case, the scrolls that pump the air are German engineered.
Okay.
And so they're very precision. Otherwise, it just does the same job in a different way.
Right.
You just don't ever have to change the oil.
Just don't have to change it. So never in the lifetime of this machine will we ever have to change the oil.
Correct.
How many hours is the lifespan of this machine? Is there a certain number of hours that you guys expect it to run? Is it 2,000, 4,000, 10,000, or is it just, have you had one break down?
We have not reached the end of life.
Okay.
We actually talked to, because there was a big discussion about oil-free vacuum pumps, especially all over the internet, you guys. There's a big discussion about it being the point of failure.
Yeah.
And because there's really nothing else in here that's being taxed,
Right.
like the vacuum pump. However, we took this vacuum pump into our shop and we abused it in ways that the manufacturer just shook their heads at.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to prove it out for you guys and for us That was 3.5 years ago, and those same pumps are still running in our shop, still being abused. I don't know when they're going to end.
Yeah.
I hope they never end.
Next question, do you guys ever stop eating in the shop? Because you've got one or two of these things running all the time. You're pulling stuff out constantly and handing it out. Hey, Bill, try this.
Never.
No?
In fact, the guys in our shop will come in and bring things.
Yeah.
One guy brought in a bunch of pickles the other day.
Yeah.
He wanted to do pickles, and
Yeah, how'd they turn out?
they were actually really good.
I wonder if you could slice pickles and make pickle chips.
That's what we did.
Oh, yeah?
They were actually the dill pickle chips that you
Okay.
put on hamburgers.
Yeah. And that turned out good?
And they were good.
Oh, snack idea.
And then we put it on freeze-dried pulled pork
Okay.
together.
Ooh.
And it was, man, it was, guys, you've got to try it.
Yeah.
Freeze-dried pickles and pulled pork together. You're never going to stop eating.
Is it freeze-dried pulled pork?
Yes.
Huh. Don't rehydrate it. Just eat it. It's like,
Just dry.
huh. Ooh, that's on the list. Okay, cool. Well, I'm impressed. Really impressed with the quality of the machine. Really impressed. I love the little cart that I can move it around on, because you don't want this sitting out in your kitchen or in your garage in the middle of the floor all the time. You want to be able to use it and tuck it away, or use it and keep it constantly rolling all the time.
Let me tell you about one other thing that we're really excited about, and that is the moisture sensor inside here.
Yeah.
Nobody else on the market actually measures the moisture inside the vacuum chamber.
Gotcha.
We don't know why,
Yeah.
but we did it and patented it, so it makes this machine a lot more intelligent in knowing your food is actually dry.
Nice.
Everybody else, they measure it, but it's pretty inaccurate.
Gotcha. So the way this machine works, and simply put, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, because I don't know everything there is to know about refrigeration, and especially vacuum. I know what a freezer is. There's a couple over here, and there's a fridge right there. This is basically a tiny freezer, a small freezer, and it has a vacuum pump built into it. So it's a sealed chamber freezer with a vacuum pump. And we all know when you take away air and you take away moisture from whatever it is that is out there, all food's trying to rot. Every bit of food. If it's natural, we're not talking about McDonald's. And I guess we could stuff a McDonald's burger in there. It wouldn't change. It probably wouldn't change
Probably
one
not.
bit. Not to pick on McDonald's, but we could put virtually anything in here. All food is trying to rot. All whole food, real food is trying to rot. And what the Prep for Life freeze dryer is trying to do is circumvent that rottage and keep it shelf stable for up to 25 years, right? That's where your moisture meter really comes into effect, because other machines don't read, you don't know what's in the middle, I guess. So if you got a big piece of pineapple about that big and you don't have a moisture meter in here to tell you when it's dry, then you could take it out, put it in your Mylar bag, seal it up, pull it out 2 years later, think you got some good snacks, and you've got little balls of mold. Am I right?
That would be true.
Okay. So that's where this thing really tends to shine above and beyond the rest, in my opinion.
We would agree.
Yeah.
Finally, one of the other things is the shape of our chamber that's different from everybody else out there. You notice everybody else has a circle,
Yeah.
and they did it for strength.
Mm-hmm.
You're pulling a lot of vacuum, so there's a lot of force on it.
Mm-hmm.
But we engineered it so that the cube chamber is going to stay the way it is, but it allows us to get more food capacity in a smaller space.
Gotcha.
So that's better for more food, but also efficiency of
Right.
the freezing and the vacuuming. There isn't as much volume to worry about.
Right. So if the cooling chamber in this is 20% smaller than another type of freeze dryer, then it would have to vacuum 20% less and freeze 20% less, and heat 20% less when it gets done. So we asked this question earlier. Tell me about the heating cycle on this, because it's kind of confusing to a lot of people. It was to me, as to whether I needed to heat it after I freeze dried everything. So I've got food in here, I freeze dried it, it says it's done, do you want a heat cycle? And I was always scared to do the heat cycle, because I just hit no and pulled it out and stuffed it in bags. Something you explained to me earlier, it's kind of like having a soda on the counter. Water's gonna pull to that cold thing, so it's gonna condense to it. So as soon as you pull them out, if the food is cold in here and you pull it out, it's immediately taking all the atmospheric moisture and pulling it right to it. And you were saying we need to heat it to circumvent that, to keep that from happening. Tell me about that.
So at the end, unless you catch the cycle right at the end, at which point in time the food is about 130 degrees.
Okay.
But if it finishes in the middle of the night and you don't want to get up like me, you get up in the morning, it's now 0 degrees.
Gotcha.
So instead of just pulling it out, like you said, where all the water then comes into your food, everything you've just done is ruined.
Right.
Heat the trays so that they are now as close to the ambient temperature as you can get them. That way when you pull the food out, you don't get that same process happening.
Gotcha. When you heat the trays, how hot does it get? Does it, you said about 130 or so? Is that?
That process at the end, it heats it to 90.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. So
And the trays won't get there, but the temperature will.
Gotcha. Now, I was worried because the way this thing works is it freeze dries, but all of the vacuum portion pulls the moisture to the outside of the barrel that's in there, and all that moisture freezes to the outside of the barrel. But you said the heating elements inside the rack don't affect that. It still stays frozen on the outside?
That's true. The ice stays against the sidewalls because the sidewalls are actually about -40 degrees.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So it keeps the ice solid there. The only thing that's heating is actually the shelf and the trays that are on there.
Gotcha. And there's 2 heating elements, one at the top and one at the bottom, and it heats that entire aluminum piece right there, is that right?
There's a heating element on every shelf.
Okay.
And one above to heat down.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I'm learning every day. Well, this thing is challenging to not use all the time and not just have constantly running. So for the average consumer, for myself to know, how much energy consumption are we looking at right here? How long does it take, first of all, say I sliced up some mangoes and slid them in here. How long would it take for those mangoes to dry normally? And how much energy consumption would that be and cost-wise?
A typical food cycle is 24 hours.
Okay.
It's typically what we tell everybody. And in that 24 hours, the cube is going to use between 11 and 14 kilowatts.
Okay.
So at my house, where I'm paying 14 cents per kilowatt hour, that's typically $1.75.
Okay. So under $2 most of the time for running this, depending on what you put in it. If you stuff it full of chicken, it might take a little longer. If you stuff it full of mangoes or if you stuff it full of watermelon, it might take a little bit longer, right?
Correct.
By the way, freeze-dried watermelon and freeze-dried cantaloupe, game changer. Awesome snacks.
I have not tried cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe is delicious. It tastes like cereal marshmallows that are good for you, which is sinful.
Okay, Josh, one of the things that people have been asking us, and so I'll let you know, at the end of the cycle, the vacuum turns off.
Okay.
And we do that so that it saves energy.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just wasting it. The freezer, however, stays on. So that keeps the ice against the side of the chamber, not melting back onto your food.
Gotcha.
When the vacuum turns off, the vacuum does leak eventually. So if you're like me, who not too long ago forgot that my food was in here for 3 days after it was finished, I came back, the vacuum had all leaked out, but it was still cold inside and all the food was still dry. So even though the vacuum's gone, you don't have to worry about it because the freezer is preserving the humidity in the space.
So you don't need to restart it at that point. You don't need to restart it and let it go through another cycle. It would What if you did restart it and go through another cycle? Would it automatically sense, okay, it's frozen, we've got vacuum, and the moisture level is where it needs to be, let's shut it down? Would it automatically do that if somebody accidentally just restarted it, or if a kid came up and hit the restart button?
Yeah, it would. Eventually, it would take a few hours
Okay.
to freeze it down, or it would take a few hours to pull the vacuum and get all the settings and whatnot.
cycle.
But eventually, it would say, "I'm done."
Yeah, geez, this is dry already. Okay, cool.
Okay, Josh. Well, it was a real pleasure coming to see you here. What a beautiful place you've got.
Yeah, thanks. We're
Thanks
gonna do a
for
little
talking
farm
with
tour.
us
We're gonna go
today.
check out the cows here in a minute too.
Oh boy, I'm excited about that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Happy freeze drying, Cube Nation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Check out the Stoney Ridge Farm channel on YouTube anytime you want to. YouTube, Facebook, all over everywhere. Instagram, Stoney Ridge Farm. First generation farm here in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We like to prep.
Check him out, guys.